Let me, okay, be on the speaker. Perfect.
Yeah,
So
hi,
good
everyone.
afternoon.
Oh, sorry. Just
It's
need to go
okay.
ahead.
So good afternoon, everyone. Today we have a pleasure to welcome Kirby Liu. That was a part of our program for almost 2.5 years. He will be leading a session on cloud solutions, on the importance, and also he will lead you guys on a journey how to find a job in a cloud solution. Kirby?
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Kirby Liu, and I originally came to Fulton County as a cybersecurity intern, where I was there for about 6 months before joining Justina's team in her digital transformation business department, working with the Center of Excellence, where I worked closely with Capstone students from Georgia State University on their various projects. So I was there for 2 years before I joined a cloud consulting company called Ahead, where I am an associate technical consultant that primarily does delivery and implementation and some DevOps within the cloud sphere. So looking forward to talking to the rest of you in a few minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kirby. Okay, wonderful. Can everyone see my slide right now?
No.
No, then give me a second.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Okay. So this presentation that Kirby is going to lead will be a part of bigger pictures that I'm going to share with you guys for the next few weeks. As you guys know, it's a big initiative nowadays regarding digital transformation, business model. And to understand what it means, we're going to go and jump to different sessions every other week. As you know, very important role plays the culture, the people, organizational transformation. There are lots of solutions that new organization wants to implement within the organization. However, in order this to happen, you want to make sure that we have a strong backbone and infrastructure. And in order this to happen, again, cloud solution, a very important subject, and Kirby gonna take us on the journey, and he's gonna explain how, hold on a second, we have somebody else in the waiting room, the importance of the cloud solution. Because if anyone wants to create a new solution, again, we do need to have a system that's gonna support that. And again, as you can see on the slide, cybersecurity is the package that keeps everything in sync. I'm going to talk about the cybersecurity. We're going to have a keynote speaker that are going to talk about cybersecurity. We will have keynote speaker that are going to talk about the enterprise application innovation, and we're going to have a keynote speaker that are going to talk about the cultural changes and organizational changes. Okay, so I just want you guys to understand that this is just the beginning of the new set that we're going to be discussing for the next couple of weeks. So thank you so much, and Kirby, you can take over and you can share your slides.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so what I'd like to do starting off, I'm going to be sharing 2 screens in just a minute. First is this word cloud. So everyone should go to, if you can, go to www.menti, MENTI.com and enter that code 401575. This is how you'll be able to interact, and I'll ask some questions and you'll be able to post in there. But I would like to everyone just to start off for me to get a sense of the room. If you're by asking, what job are you interested in getting after you graduate? So for those that are interested in a cloud engineering role, please go ahead and just type in cloud engineering. For those that are maybe interested in software development or project manager or UX designer, cybersecurity analyst, this will give me a sense of where everyone is at in the room and be able to tailor some part of my conversation with the students. So let me go ahead and do that first. I see cybersecurity software consultant. implementation consultant. Okay. Data analyst. Great. And I'll just give it a few more seconds. All right. Perfect. Okay. So no idea. That's what someone says. And we got a couple of cybersecurity. Okay. This helps. So I think when you're dealing with whether it's an implementation consultant, data analyst, cybersecurity, you're going to be dealing with some aspects to the cloud. And I think at this point in this day and age, cloud is basically, it touches almost everything. So, and then I'll talk about more about job finding, and this applies to any type of industry, regardless of what you may be seeking. But does everyone see my my screen with the cloud computing presentation? I just want a confirmation.
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. And then, so I've moved on to the second screen. I should be sharing two screens, right? Okay. If I am, anytime you want to just ask a question or share your thoughts, you can go ahead and put it in here, and then I can pause. It's anonymous, so you can completely share. It doesn't say who you are, so if you're shy, it's one way to be able to do it. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on the cloud presentation here in the moment. So the agenda is going to be a little bit different today because I don't think I have a full hour and a half, but we're going to cover cloud computing basics, such as what is cloud computing, why choose cloud as a potential industry, cloud landscape in terms of the different cloud platform providers, such as Azure, GCP, AWS, and the conversation about on-premise versus cloud, why some companies may choose to migrate over to the cloud. And then we're going to talk about key topics of scalability and elasticity. These are advantages of why people would choose to migrate, fault tolerance versus availability. And then we're going to go to a very high level concept of microservices, infrastructure as code, and containerization. These are probably items you're not going to be learning in class, but this is very next step kind of frontier technologies and where the cloud industry is going. And then we're going to talk about finding a job within a cloud, or in some of your cases, just finding a job. How do I navigate finding a job after I graduate? And so that's going to cover the preparation aspect, the application, and the interviewing. And if we have any time, then we'll be talking about the Q&A. So just a self-introduction, my name is Kirby Liu, and I graduated originally from Emory University, and I went into real estate for a few years as an analyst. And then I decided to do a career pivot and went to Georgia State University, and that's where I was interning at Fulton County Government and met Jacina and joined the Center of Excellence department. So my current role is an associate technical consultant at AHEAD. Basically, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but my certifications, I have the solution architect, developer, and system operations in AWS, Terraform, and then Azure, as well as a Kubernetes administrator. And the clients I've worked with, they range from Gulfstream, Aerospace, Churchill Downs, Sierra Nevada Corporation, doing DevOps work for them and their military contract company, as well as American Axle Manufacturing. So just a little spotlight about AHEAD. We're a cloud consulting practice, and I'm part of what's called the Launch Program. And basically, it's a fast track for those that are interested in cloud or software developer. We have several different tracks. And basically, within 2 years, you're fast tracked, and every 6 months, you get a position and a comp adjustment. And so at the end of 2 years, you'll have gone through 4 comp adjustments. And definitely it's for people coming out of college or looking to be able to get into the industry and be able to consult and really get a launching pad. And so just to name the cloud services, we have cloud, app services, modern data center, virtualization, ServiceNow, cloud app, and platform, and modern application. So if you're interested in that, hiring takes place twice a year in the summer as well as the wintertime. So this is kind of just a roadmap of all the different items that we do touch. So if you do join ahead, you can see we do work with cybersecurity, machine learning, data processing, and analyzation. So just want to do that, but let's get into it. So what is cloud computing? I'd love for this to be interactive. That's why I would like to just have anyone who can want to take a shot at this to see what they know and be able to answer what is cloud computing, and just throw out any keywords or anything you've heard or terminologies that are very common with when you hear about the cloud industry.
Well, for me, I think the cloud industry just consists of information that is valuable to the user or a company. The computing part, it's got me kind of confused. I'm trying to think, but I know that's what I think cloud is.
Yeah, that's it has to do with technology moving information. That was a good, very good answer, Mr. Hayes.
Is it okay if I answer as well? Or
Yeah,
say
yeah,
something?
and go ahead and just say, feel free to just state your first name so that way I can know who's saying it, and then just whatever comment or questions. So go for it. I like it.
My name is Andy Zhao Chen. From what my understanding is, basically, it's just data storage inside a cloud-based network where anyone can access it anywhere through using any network secure. Just with using Wi-Fi, instead of like actually storing in like a home drive, you can literally access it anywhere. That's based on my understanding of cloud computing. Essentially, just data storage and using computing power.
Yeah, that's a really good answer, Andy. And so, yeah, basically, as Andy was saying, the cloud computing aspect is as long as you have internet, that's all you need. If you have a computer, you can connect to a data center that is located anywhere in the world and be able to use their computer as if it was within your company's network or in your on-premise. And so you're basically, this is the definition as by AWS, by Azure and GCP. But basically they talk about cloud computing is where you're using the computing power, not local to you, as long as you have internet. And it's very much on, all three of these definitions have keywords such as on demand, pay what you use. And so you are paying only what you consume. So the moment you stop, you're not paying for those services. And so it makes it where you have access to thousands, if not millions of dollars of equipment at your fingertip, as long as you have the internet, without having to need to maintain it, pay for it, or buy those servers. And so it becomes, it opens up the possibilities for anyone here to be able to have millions of dollars of equipment that they can just connect to. As long as you have the internet and a browser, you can connect to AWS, Azure, GCP. So that was a really good answer. Let's talk about like the what's going on in the marketplace. So as you can see, I'm sure everyone's heard of AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. At this point, AWS has 32% of the market share, and Azure has 20%. Maybe just a few years ago, 5 years ago, Azure had only 11, maybe even 3 years ago. And so they've really grown tremendously in the space. And we also have Google Cloud. And each one of them has their own niche in which how they operate and attract business. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But just to give you an idea of how much the cloud industry is going to grow, Gartner, which is it's an IT consumer reports, came out with a report saying that 45% of all IT spending is going to have to do with the cloud. And that's huge. Just from a job growth market standpoint, if you're really looking to get into an industry that's going to be high paying, this is a really good place to start. And you're going to, I'm sure this data has changed in the marketplace right now, but the average cloud engineering salary is $111,000. But I know people who come out after a year or two, where they're getting pays of up to $150,000, just because there's such a demand, but there's a lack of supply. And so if you do really enjoy working with new technologies, I would really say cloud industry is a rewarding, but it's also a great place to start. I myself, I went to Georgia State University for a computer science degree, but I found myself liking to architect and put things together, infrastructure implementation, than I actually do coding. And so someone described a software engineering job as never-ending homework assignments in which you're working on building out code. And that wasn't something that I could see myself doing or really enjoying. So I kind of pivoted into the cloud consulting space and really have enjoyed it thus far. Has anyone heard of this is the cloud on-premise infrastructure or software as a service, where basically it's a scale of when on the left side, you have everything you own on-premise. You own the data center, and all the way on the right side, you have the software as a service in which you are using as little as you can on the infrastructure side, but you're paying for the software usage. And so you're offloading the need for having to do server upkeeps, messing around with the OS. And so has anyone seen this before, where these different scales of model for cloud usage? And as you go, has anyone seen that?
Yes, during the cybersecurity course.
Yeah, yeah. And this is really important because for cybersecurity, it's called the shared responsibility model, in which the more items you keep on premise, the more you're responsible for. So on the left side, you're responsible for everything in networking. And then as you go more toward using the cloud capabilities, you're offloading the responsibility more onto those providers. And so it's really important, as Andy was saying, from a cloud cybersecurity responsibility. But also on the left side, you have a really high fixed cost. This gets back into why companies are considering moving over to cloud, because on the left side, you own everything. And so you're paying a fixed cost, and on the right side, you're paying a more variable cost. So we'll keep that in mind, as it's called CapEx, capital expenditures, versus operating expenditures. So if you are having a data center, you're going to be paying a lot of that upfront cost and depreciating over time. Meanwhile, if you have an operational expense, you're paying as you go on demand. So when it comes to when it comes to the usage of the model of cloud versus on-premise, where companies are these days is a hybrid model. Basically, because it's pay as you go, it's a metered service for cloud consumption. The best way to think about that is if you are using something a lot, you're paying a higher rate, which means you may want to consider having it on your data center. If you're not using a application as much and you're only using it frequently, then you may consider moving it to the cloud, so that way you can have a hybrid. So a really good example is, let's say we have a SQL database server that we have to update to on a daily basis. And let's say this update from your application takes place every day at midnight, and it only takes place for 2 minutes. And so under a more traditional on-premise model, regardless of how much you use it, you are going to have to pay for purchasing the server and taking care of the network and operating and maintenance. Whereas if you're on a cloud, what you can do is you can have it set up on a schedule where it spins up, let's say right at 11:59, and it spins up, and at midnight, your application calls out to it, updates it, and then at 12:01, you decommission that VM. And so if you're paying by usage, let's say it costs 10 cents a minute. So you've literally went from paying over the course of a year $5,000 or $3,000 to using just pennies on a daily basis. And so that's kind of where we see the capabilities and advantage of cloud taking place. So let's talk about another, and sometimes companies aren't, cost is just one aspect of a cloud migration advantage. So another one is scaling and elasticity. You can have Netflix, they're really heavy based on applications, whereas before they may have taken us 6 months to be able to scale out and deploy their infrastructure and integrate new changes. Using a DevOps approach and having automation and the elasticity of cloud, they can take some of their application builds from 6 months down to a week or two. And so a lot of that's taking place of using these infrastructure advantages. So let's talk about scalability versus elasticity. Does anyone know what the difference might be? Or has anyone heard the term scaling up versus scaling out? So let's talk about scaling. We're going to talk about scaling up. Basically, let's pretend this. In this scenario, we have a application that processes a movie to create a JPEG, and so basically, a user will upload a picture, and it'll be processed, and it'll create a JPEG or a PNG, which is fine. Now let's talk about they're going to process a movie file. And it's a really large movie file. And so when you talk about scaling up, let's say that database in the cloud or the application in the cloud needs more RAM, CPU, and it needs more storage to be able to process it. And so using a auto scaling group or some type of monitoring system, you can have that application be able to scale up for that moment that you need to process that movie. And so this is called scaling up and vertical scaling. And then when it finishes, it scales back down into that original application. And so it gives you that flexibility instead of just hitting peak RAM and CPU and then the application failing, or having to over provision a large application the 95% of the time in which you're overpaying, you'll be able to leverage the cloud elasticity. Let's talk about scaling out. So how many people have tried to gotten a PS5 over Black Friday, Thanksgiving, and they go to it drops at midnight and they go to it, and not just you, but everyone else goes to the website and they've seen it go down and you can't connect to it. That's because the demand and traffic that has overloaded the server. And so using Elastic Load Balancer, what you can do is you can scale out, which means you increase the number instead of increasing the specification. You're scaling out the number of applications. And so that way you can have, as traffic comes into the Elastic Load Balancer, it'll direct the traffic to many different servers that can handle the requests. And so that's scaling out. And then once it's done, it scales back in. And this is a fault tolerant availability. Basically, if for any reason an EC2 instance, the server on AWS goes down, AWS will recognize that and it will spin up another EC2 instance and have an Elastic Load Balancer go to it. So just between scalability, elasticity, and fault tolerance, these are advantages that outside of costing, why companies will go to migration to a public cloud. All right. So yeah, this is the CapEx. Whenever you buy hardware, you're guessing how much you're going to use. And if a lot of people are using your application, your usage is going to go up. But you have to guess, and then there's some point in which your usage is going to be under or over your on-premise resource. And if it's under, you're paying that difference. And if it's over, then that's too bad on performance. And so that's why having a hybrid approach is oftentimes going to be the best way for customers to be able to handle workloads and cost savings. Yeah, so let's talk about microservices. This is where we start getting to a very high level concept of basically, actually, let me go to, okay, let's talk about let's talk about tiered architecture. Has anyone ever heard of a single tier architecture and what that means? You used to see that more back in the day when you have older machineries, when the IBM machines used to be the size of a whole entire room.
Isn't that essentially just keeping like a bunch of applications in just one place?
Not just
off my understanding.
applications. Not just
Oh,
applications.
Like interface and data.
Yes, that's correct. So it's where each machine has its application and database within the same unit, housed within the same server. And so it used to be back in the day, everything would be a single machine. Your presentation in which the user would use and interact with your application and the database. And so that was, back in the day, it was the easiest to do. And as technology evolved, what you would want to do is start splitting up the database and application with the presentation layer. And so that way people can be able to visit your presentation, or sorry, visiting your application. And finally, the 3-tier is we split each one of those up. So your application, your database, and your presentation. Can anyone guess what the advantages of those are? And why that was, the evolution, why we started going toward a 3-tier? Stumped? Or anyone? So if you break it up, what you can do is you can spin up or increase the single instance of what you need. Whereas before, if it was all housed within one server, let's just say only the application tier was being maxed out, you're spinning up application and database when all you really need is application. And so there's a lot of overhead, or let's just say your database is what you need to increase, then with a 3-tier, you just increase your database instances. And so it gives you a lot more flexibility. Microservices is basically that concept, but taken to a next level. And for those that are in software development, it's where you're taking each component of your software, maybe the component that does the authentication, maybe the component that does the calling out to the database. But each one of those services is broken down where instead of your authentication and what calls out to the database is housed within a single function, it's split up so that way if you need to scale up a certain service, that's what you're scaling up instead of the whole application software package at large. And so this is a further fine tuning of the microservice architecture and so with the cloud infrastructure, you're able to spin up and house those services quickly and effectively and be able to automate those. Next is infrastructure as code. That's basically where it's called Terraform, but basically you can, instead of going to a GUI and creating your EC2 on the AWS console, right now what you can do is you can create a text file, feed it through the Terraform package, and it will, through an API, be able to spin up your instances. And so whereas it may take you hours to set up a whole infrastructure, as long as you've declared your Terraform files, you can feed it through Terraform and it can quickly set up your infrastructure and destroy infrastructure within seconds. And so this is kind of whereas before people would be asking what technology within cloud, AWS, Azure, GCP would be the most beneficial. We're moving away from specific platform languages and services toward more cloud agnostic services like Terraform. And so that way a person in Kubernetes, Dockers, if you've heard of those, you're able to use and interact each one of those cloud technology using a single language or software service. So if you are interested in cloud, definitely look into Terraform. It's a pretty useful and a really hot commodity right now. So yeah, let's talk about, with that being said, I feel like, oh, how much coding knowledge do I need for cloud? That's a great question. For cloud, there's a scale. If you aren't really that strong of a coder, but you still want to, you can be a infrastructure individual that works with the console of migrations. You can advise customers on what services they can use, and this can all be done through the console. So you can, as long as you have an understanding of that, you can still be able to develop a high-paced career. If you have coding knowledge, you can get towards a dev security operations role engineer, in which you're coding the infrastructure using Terraform or using GitLab automation, and be able to spin those services. And so it's as far as you want to take it. And as you don't need a lot of code to be highly competitive. Like, whereas in programming, some 12-year-old who's learned coding will be at a coding god that you will never be. Within cloud, if you know a little bit of code, it's going to get you so much further and being more competitive, and a higher salary. So something to think about. So let's talk about getting a job just in general. This is the launch program that I was talking about, that I come from. So basically it's 4 different salary bumps as well as position increases. So you start out as a launch associate, then you go to an associate technical consultant at the, so it's 6 months, you become the launch associates, and then at a year mark, you're at the associate technical. A year and a half, you're a senior associate technical consultant, and then at the 2-year mark, you're a technical consultant. And for anyone that's coming out of college, I really highly encourage you, if you have the personality for it, to consider consulting, because it requires you to, you're working on new projects every single time that you are on a project. It's going to be new. You're on the cutting edge of technology, but also I work on a team of 4 different project teams. And so I'm always, because the customer doesn't know how to implement these, I'm always working on the newest technology, and a really great way to skill up. It takes someone who has the soft skills as well as the technical skills. And I think you're just paid a lot more because it's hard to find someone with both. Usually people have the soft skills without the technical, or vice versa. And if you go into an enterprise role, a lot of times what I see from the client side is they may work in that position for 2 to 4 years using the same technology, doing the same thing. So it's definitely an accelerated pace and accelerated way to learn. We have unlimited PTO, and we also have certification, reimbursements, and incentives. So I think we're about to go into our hiring. We have modern apps, that's software development. We have cloud, we have managed services, modernization, data centers. And so we do have a lot of different tracks. Let's talk about those that are interested in a career in cloud, or just any type of career. And so when you usually are in the job searching phase, there's 3 phases: the application, the interviewing, and then there's the preparation for both of those. How do you secure and land an interview? How do you end the interview, secure, and land that job? So let's talk about the application process. I think this is where I would love for this to be interactive, because I think this is where most people really get a chance, and it's practical, right? Everyone's going through this in which they want to secure a job, a high-paying role. So using cloud engineering as an example, what often happens, how many times is,
Kirby, hold on 1 second. Let me cut you for a second. I'm sorry for that. If you have questions for Kirby, please participate, raise your hand. And if you cannot talk, please put your questions in a chat so you guys can have this interactive session with him, okay?
And I see a lot of people have been answering the chats. I just don't see it, unfortunately, but a lot. Kevin,
okay, Kirby, and then I will assist you with the chat. How about that? And then if you see somebody's raising a hand, then we can navigate to this person, okay?
Absolutely. So what certificates will help in the cloud engineering? Good question. And we'll cover that we'll cover that and which one maybe. There's some services that are better for people who are new than others, and so we'll talk about that. But from an applying standpoint, how many people have searched a job, cloud engineer, and they see, oh, okay, this job that they want, they're like, hey, this sounds like the place I want to be. And it says right off the bat, 3+ years of hands-on keyboard experience, right? Must have in-depth knowledge of all these technologies. And you're like, I'm a student. Like, what? Does this mean that I shouldn't apply? Does this mean that I'm, way out of the league? And I think for those that are interested in job searching, when you see these requirements, go ahead and just apply. I mean, this is HR writing this job description out. And a lot of times, as long as you make it to the interview, this part, the whole requirements is out the window. So, and it's not on you to decide what you qualify for. It's on the job side. So go ahead. I would just encourage, I've seen this all the time, especially sometimes for technologies that have not even been around for those 3 to 5 years or 10 years that they require. So just go ahead and apply. That's the first thing. Don't let that scare you. Okay. But I will say though, one thing we're going to talk about, the most important thing is getting the interview. If you can get the interview, all these qualifications are out the window. But we're going to talk about how competitive the application process is. And so this is just a sample job in which you see 400 people have applied. And so it is very scary. And it can feel like, how many people have done an application, it feels like you're throwing it down an empty well, and you never hear back. And one thing I will say, Indeed has this function where you can do a quick apply, a standard template, where you put a standard application onto, you upload it, and then you see a job you like, you hit apply, it takes 12 seconds. And it's like the standard college application where you do a application and then you just shoot it off. And so because I'm so easy to apply for jobs and so quick, it becomes where employers are just overwhelmed with applications. And I did it one time just for fun. I did maybe 30 applications a day through that quick apply and that took me 5-10 minutes. And out of maybe 120, I got 1 interview request back. And I was overqualified. And so this is all to say that, like, we're going to talk about, don't let it stop you from applying, but don't rely on just cold applications to get the job that you want to get.
Kirby, I just want to let you know that they really like your feedback.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think this is regardless of what career you are in, if you're looking for cybersecurity or anything else, this is applicable. And so the job application stage of applying, the technology has made it so easy that it's just, it's not fruitful anymore from an employee standpoint. So let's talk about the right way to apply, right? Let's talk about how what you're going to do different than everyone else to get the job and secure the job you want to get. So applying should start with networking. I know we hear this a lot, but if that's the job you want to get and you think you deserve it and you're willing to work hard, hold off a little bit in terms of just not go down the temptation of shotgunning applications and then all of a sudden just getting a job with this company you never heard of before. And do you think you deserve a great launching pad to start your career off? You should start with networking. And so part of that is 85% of jobs are filled through some type of referral. I know every single job that Justina has gotten, there's some Capstone students at Fulton County was through an internal referral. I know at my workplace, they tell me the jobs before it's posted online. And so I think of the people that reach out to me that I've contact with, and I put them in touch with the recruiter before anyone else on the internet has applied. And so that's why it's so important to make sure you're not just spinning your wheels, clicking. It may feel productive, but at the end of the day, it only takes one person that you networked with to get you that job that you want. So how do I go about doing this? Use your resources, your network, your school, and use LinkedIn. Join an interest group, look at your alumni, look at a company and on LinkedIn and go to the people section, and you can search by the number of people that went to your college. And so that's just a very quick and easy way to find your network. So let's talk about the first message. All right, this is where I need the interaction to take place, right? And this is the key. Who's can anyone tell me what message they usually send out when they do? Has anyone sent a message, tried it before? What do you usually do? And this is where I'm going to look to people in the audience.
What kind of message? Like
your first message, your cold message to, you found someone at this dream job. It's let's say it's a consulting company, or let's say it's Google and it's a cybersecurity or data analyst, and they went to your school. So what do you do? What do you go from there? You found the person that you want to reach out and network with.
Well, I haven't done it, but I'll probably be like, hey, introduce myself and try to understand more of like their side.
Yeah.
Like, get them to interact with me. If they don't interact, then it's
Okay.
Oh, Kevin, hold on one second, Kirby. Actually, Kevin, you have done this exercise. You had to reach out. You had to reach out, Lotta. You had to reach out to previous Capstone student to help you with this project. How did you do that? How did you do it? It's the same thing.
Oh well, I introduced myself, stated where I was coming from, what I needed, and like just introduced myself, and then they also introduced themselves, and then I told them like what I needed, and it just came like along from there.
That's awesome. I mean, it's not easy to put yourself out there, so I want to commend you on doing that. I think, and this is the number one mistake people make when they do this on LinkedIn, is they make it really long. And I want you to think about, if you've ever had a situation like this, we'll compare it. How many times have you gotten a text message, really long one, that you meant to get around? And it's because they're like, hey, how's it going? It's so long. And you want to match energy. And so you're like, yeah, no, I'm going to. And then you want to you feel compelled to write an equally long text message back. But in the hustle of everything in life, you just keep putting it off until it's been like a week later. And you're just like, shoot, whether it's reaching out to, family or cousin or friend or someone you hadn't talked to. And so one of the things is, when you do a LinkedIn message, keep it short. 3 sentences, perfectly fine, right? And so the reason is because people may have the intent to get back to you, but the longer you make it, the more they feel compelled to do match energy. And so just keep it short and cordial. It should just be 3 sentences, introduction. Hi, my name is Kirby, and I'm a graduating senior interested in learning about blank cybersecurity. And just your commonality. I came across your profile in the Georgia State University alumni, and asked, could I have a few minutes of your time to learn more about blank? The reason you want to do that is you want to make it simple for them just to say one word, yes, but time. Not like, hey, nice to meet you, blah, 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 da, da, da. Make it as easy on them. You don't have to sell yourself. Just people who want to help you are in a position to help. It's because they are champions of helping other people, and not because anything you're going to say to, you want to be polite, cordial, but keep it short. And so let's say you did that after your first message. You've gotten, he said, you got the director of cybersecurity, and he's like, yeah, sure. What do you do next? You're able to get the informational interview. You always want to set up an informational interview. And that's where you just have 30 minutes of just a meet and greet with them. So what do you do during that meet and greet? And let me ask this question, right? What is everyone's favorite topic? What do you think everyone's favorite topic is? Really need someone to answer this.
Themselves.
Ooh, good one. Good one, Andrew. Everyone's favorite topic is themselves. All right. And so this makes it so easy. You don't have to go in there. You don't have to sell yourself. It's not an interview. It's a meet and greet, in which you want to be professional, but at the end of the day, you go into the informational interview with 3 questions. And those 3 questions, you just keep them in mind. It could be about themselves, the nature of work, and their company. And those are just starter questions. Once people start talking, that's all you need to do, and let them talk. If they spend the whole entire time talking about themselves, that's great. That's fine. You don't have to, they're going to remember that meet and greet with you, as they're going to be like, man, they were like a really great person to like interact with. They'll have a great impression of you. They'll be like, yeah, that was great, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're applying for jobs, everyone's teachable. You know, what you're looking for is, can you spend an elevator ride with them, and just, you know, do you want to be stuck in an elevator with this person onto your next client meeting, right? Do they have the soft skills? And so it's okay if they spend the whole time talking about themselves, right? And then this is the key point though, at the end of the informational interview, thank them for their time and ask them if you can keep them posted on the job search. All you have to do, and you don't have to set up additional meet and greets. Just keep them in your, just send them an email. Maybe it's once a month, in which, keep it short. All it is, hey, I saw this article you were talking about. And then that's, you don't have to set up, it's very tiring to set up a network. And so just keep them in your email. And when you do find a great position that you're looking for, that's when you activate. And so you ask them, hey, I found this great position. I'm really interested. I think I'm a perfect candidate for it. You know, does your company do any type of referral? And I'll tell you a secret. Almost every company does internal referrals, where my company, they have a bonus payment of like $4,000 if I get an entry-level person in. And so people are incentivized. And if you kind of want to indirectly ask them about if they would mind referring you, don't even ask about them referring you. Just say, hey, does your company have like any type of referral system? Like, can I keep you in mind? Blah, blah, blah. All right. So
I have like a tip. Sorry, I have like a tip
go
real
for it.
quick for anyone like in the interview process, or just like message them back after like the interview. It's to, like, add like a signature at the bottom of your email. It makes it look a lot more professional.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
I mean, it works. I mean, I would assume it works because I'm in like the second round of interview with KPMG, but yeah, you know.
And
there's this site I used to, I get the name of it.
And let's be clear, this informational interview is not any part of the actual interview process. You don't want to go into it with asking questions about the actual interview. So I know maybe I should have labeled it as like a meet and greet, but that's like your first time meeting outside of the interview process. But as Ross is saying, signature is great because it shows you not your first time at rodeo at an office. And if they need to get a hold of you for any reason, they can call you. You know, the manager needs to like reschedule, but definitely it does make you look very much more professional.
Well, Kirby mentioned here, this whole environment is outside of your business setup.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So this is that meet and greet, spend 15-30 minutes talking to them and then having them get a great impression and then saving their relationship just for when that job that comes up. So yeah, this is all from the 2-hour job search. If you are more interested in the process, this is just a very high level overview. Basically, it talks to you about how doing that, there's an exercise you do within 2 hours where you identify the jobs that you want to go after and choosing the job instead of letting circumstance and the job choose you, right? So this is out there for anyone that would like to. Let's talk about interviewing. So this is the actual interviewing. What is the interviewing? What is interviewing? Basically, how anyone would describe interviewing is it's like speed dating. You know, like it's very awkward, in which you're looking for a fit, you know, that fit for your company as from an interviewer, and you have 8 to 10 interviews over the course of your job where you're hiring. Yes, interviewing is stressful, just like dating. And from the interviewer side or the interviewee, it's super awkward, right? Like no one likes to interview. And there's some people, there's some people who are just naturally really good, right? Let's take those people out of the question, because I feel like more people than not it's not going to be like their first innate skill. So let's talk about how we can get better at it, right? But let's first recognize why we're interviewing. So you're meeting all these people and with the hopes of finding the perfect match. And at the end of the interview, you're either going to feel like you won that $1 million, you got the job you wanted, or you're going to feel crushed and you're going to feel like, when you don't get the job. So how do we make this process better? How do we make it so that way it's a great process for you, right? And I think this is where people need to realize, Justine, is it okay if we end, I know we're at the hour at 2:15, I think another 10-15 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, definitely. I told you can go over.
Yeah, perfect. So I think what people need to realize when you interview is that it really is, at the end of the day, and for most people here, it's entry. Everyone's interviewing for entry level or maybe one role or two above it. And at that point, the questions are going to be 85% of it's going to be the same, 80% of it, right? Because you're not at a C-suite or 7-8 years in where they are asking you very, very in-depth technical questions because you've been in that field. All of you are just starting out. And so how does that work when you're just starting out? I mean, there's only a limited number of questions I can ask, right? And so 80% is going to be behavioral, and then 20% of that may be technical specific to your industry, whether it's data, cybersecurity. And that 20% technical is really to gauge your interest, your passion, and really see your thought process and how you react to questions you may not know, right? So with that being said, if 80% of behavioral questions, they're really easy to find. There's only so many behavioral questions an interviewer can ask you. And how many people have interviewed before and they've asked this question? Tell me about a time where you've dealt with a challenge and succeeded. Tell me about a time how you failed and what you did. Tell me a time you played an important role. Like, there's only so many times I can ask these questions before you know what questions they're going to ask. And you do that by searching it. And so if you know the questions, you can come up with an answer. You know this, it's like a movie script. You know what they're going to ask. And so you come up with your questions. And so search for like entry levels for your field. And I think part of that is once you know it, you should be able to give answers and you can rehearse it and deliver it. So script it. First, script what your answers are going to be. Then you want to rehearse it to where it sounds natural, so you don't sound like you're reading anything or a robot. And then delivery. How do you make it like deliver it in a way that's just natural, but they're going to be like, man, this person is like awesome. It's because you know the answers already to the test. So you want to make sure you're doing that. And they're really at the end.
And Kirby, I want to add one more thing here.
Yeah.
So to your previous slide, when you were showing how many people have gone through the interview and they have failed, don't take this as a failure, but take this as experience. So you can practice those questions that you've been asked become natural to you, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I think if you let one failure get in your way or two, sometimes you just need that one job to take that risk or that chance with you. And sometimes it's finding a right match. So don't feel bad. It's a natural process, as Justina says.
Yeah, I agree with what you said though, Kirby. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
like I had like an interview today too, earlier, and like you said, like it's all basically the same, very generic. Like questions will be tell me about yourself, what you see where you see yourself in the future, your greatest weakness, your like what's best about what's an advantage of having you like for the company, difficult decisions, talking about that, challenges. I mean, that's pretty much what sums like the interview process. I mean, they might give you some that like are like not so generic. But like it typically falls under that. So if you just prepare and you just like rehearse, like that's the best way. And it will make a world of change. And they'll see that when they're interviewing you, the interviewee. Like
absolutely. They can tell you're prepared and you make it sound like, you haven't thought this really through, but when you make it sound natural, and when you're able to make it sound natural is when they're going to think you're just naturally awesome. So I think let's talk about like these behaviorals, right? Sometimes the common thing that I see with people is they make it very long. That's the number one problem that I see. So you should keep your responses in the STAR method. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but you break it down into situation, task, action, and results. And the situation, the context is what you set up. So if I'm asking you, what did you do in this project? That context is just one sentence, you know, and I have an example, but that context could be at Fulton County. Fulton County had a issue with XYZ. And then the next one is the task, which is a challenge, or what your role. So the task, I was tasked with, you know, completing or overcoming or, you know, researching and developing and delivering. And then the action was what you did, what you actually did. And the results are what those metrics are. Like what changed, what was the results of your action? I increased efficiency by 80%. And so this, at the end of the day, should be anywhere from 3 to 5 sentences, no more than 6. And I think a lot of times that's where we fail when we script it out. We make it 10 to 12, and it may not sound that long or far for you, but listening to someone talk for like 30 seconds by themselves is the worst as an interviewer. So just keep that in mind. Yeah. So yeah, here's an example. I use Fulton County. Even this is kind of long because, you know, I have string together sentences, but yeah, the situation, Fulton County has just entered a 2-year, $4 million contract to refresh the wireless network of Fulton County's 150 sites, including its 2 data centers that were to enter their product lifecycle. The task, I was tasked with designing the framework for how to prioritize the scheduling and implementation of those 150 sites. Action, I started by gathering input from executive leadership, technical leads, and professional services to create a selection matrix where 150 sites were graded across 8 criteria from different weights. And the results, the selection matrix was further fine-tuned with individual site considerations, but the results was that the framework is the basis for the site prioritization that is utilized across a 2-year network refresh project. And I think like very rarely can people just open their mouths and just have like really eloquent responses that are short and concise, right? And then so this is why you really want to just make sure you're writing it down, but also you want to make sure here's some common nuances, right? Change from a we to I mindset. I know some of us are in a team when they talk about team, but at this point, when you're interviewing, you're the only one that's interviewing, not your team. So change it to a I, what I did. Be comfortable in that, because that's how you're gonna really get the job you want. Write a script so that we can collect your thoughts. Record yourself when you practice, because you can see and you can fine tune it. It should feel concise, but feel natural. Here's a really important
I'm
one.
gonna interject here. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm doing
Yeah.
this a few times.
Yeah. No,
with this I mindset, yes, this is good, guys, but also the interview wants to see that you are able to work on the team as well. So
Yeah,
if you are able to
absolutely.
accomplish something with the team and work, because at the end of the day, when you're going to be hired, it's not going to be it's going to be a team. So yes, it's good, but also you do need to, you have to convey this in both ways, that it's kind of a dance, that you need to convey this to the interviewer. Because they do need to see this. Go ahead.
I think a great way of doing that, like what I do with my interviews, is like I tie that into like a challenge or difficult decision. I make it team oriented.
Wonderful. Yeah, there needs to be some type of implementation and impact that you've been working with the team that is cohesive, that you can collaborate, you can resolve challenges, find the solutions together, work as a team, and definitely, yes, indicate your accomplishment as well, because that's very important. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think everyone wants to be wants to hire a team player. No one wants to hire that one person. But it's a good balance. And if you find yourself saying we a lot, you know, try to maybe be cognizant of that. And you find you're saying I too much, then maybe be cognizant and drop it down to a we sometimes. So just find that moderation. But do definitely do a mock interview with someone that's not an immediate friend, because you want to simulate the same level of pressure. Because if you're too comfortable with a friend or family member, it's difficult. But you want to be able to do it with someone who, whether it's a professor, Justina, or someone at Fulton County, that you aren't really that you're not too like there's still a little bit of air of like you want to impress them. And so in the question phase is a really good time to show your research. Ask maybe a couple of questions. I use that when I interview people to see if they've done specific research through the company. And I think that's a really good point, because it shows someone could be interviewing at 500 companies and not know a thing about your company. So that's kind of a really good point. Here's one thing that's really, some people find this very difficult, and that's to smile and be excited. If you're the fifth interviewee, when someone in the first start of the interview does a big smile and just say, "Hi, my name's Kirby Liu. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity." Like that makes a huge difference, especially when these entry level or beginner level positions are all about attitude and personality. And so that by itself sets you up where I may ask the same questions, but if you're able to maintain that attitude, like you may be probably just a shoe-in. Like I can't tell you how many people don't smile and just go through it. So let's talk about preparation. I think this is true for any field, is you want to showcase a project that is outside of school. And this just shows that you have passion, and that's what sets you apart. So it can be anything. And if you're coding, you need to have a GitHub. If you're not having a GitHub and you're applying for developer role, like just stop. It's gonna be honest. You know, if you are a cloud and you haven't, I've had someone who studied 8 hours a day for like 2 weeks and got this high level cert. And when I ask them a question about the subject matter, they can't answer it. And then I'll ask them how they studied, and then they told me they crammed it. I'm like, yeah, I can tell. You have to at least sign up for the management, like the console, and done something with it. So do some type of lab that we can back it up. Yeah, so cloud platforms, AWS is really good as they're very developer friendly. So if you're interested in DevOps, they're a good fit for those of you that would like to get into the cloud field. They have a 1-year free tier, so you can use almost all of their services for free for a year. And their certification is very good about teaching you the service and then applying the AWS service. Azure, it's a fast growing one. I think there's a lot of job opportunities. Their learning is more specific to their Azure technologies and less about teaching you like the underlying principle. So you may learn about like Azure this, Azure that, but you're not learning about like why the load balancer networking takes place behind it. So, and their lab environment, they give you a $200 credit that expires in the first month. So a lot of people, if you're like me, you sign up for it first, probably within anticipation of building out a lab, and then you study for the cert, and then maybe like by the second or third month, you're ready to do a lab and it's expired. And their tests are a lot more difficult. But if you do like enterprise security, I think Azure is a good place, because a lot of it's really good tie-in to Active Directory and to enterprise level environments. GCP is very niche, so not a lot of corporations like using GCP because they're relatively new, but they have good fundamentals and really good guided labs, and their specialty is machine learning. So if you're interested in doing any type of machine learning, then GCP is a really good fit. But if you're looking to do like security, or if you're looking to do DevOps, definitely stick within these lanes of what each niche is more known for. So yeah, I think that kind of talks about the certification. Definitely, if you have any questions afterwards, you can hit me up. Here's a learning path. If you want to try to get a Azure training day, they offer a free in-class lab in which they give you a voucher to take the Azure fundamentals. So this is all within under $150. You can get Azure fundamentals as well as the solution architect. If you sign up for the Azure free day and the student discount, that's 50% off. And then take advantage of Udemy. There's Stefan Merrick. He's a really good one. Teaches you the fundamentals. But when Udemy, never buy Udemy on not on sale. Make sure you get a discount because it's going to be $20 as opposed to like $150. So this is how you get 3 learning labs, 2 certificates, all under $150. So yep, and make sure you're doing a home lab. So with that being said, that's pretty much concludes the presentation. Thank you all for sitting here and joining me.
Thank you, Kirby. That was fantastic. We appreciate you. Kirby, do you know if Georgia State has free lynda.com? I think now it's LinkedIn, and some of those classes can be found.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Georgia State has a free like AWS academy that's specific to specific to AWS.
Wonderful, thank you. So Kirby, lots of participants say thank you in the chat. Appreciate you. Thank you, Kirby. Thank you. I know we have gone over the time, but I really want to give you guys an opportunity to ask Kirby some questions. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. Andrew?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually wasn't. I was just scratching my head, but I do have a question for you. Why not? Yeah, so today I had an interview, Kirby, and she asked me one of the questions that you were talking about where she was like, tell me about a time blank. And I had not experienced that time. It was so, in depth and I just didn't even know what to say.
Sure.
What do you recommend?
What was this specifically, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh my gosh,
just
it was like
roughly.
It was like, tell me about a time that you were helping somebody solve an issue over the phone, but they couldn't quite describe the issue to you and they didn't understand it. And you also didn't understand it. How did you work through it? It was something.
Lame terms. That's what they were trying to find out, if you can cohesively experience.
Yeah.
I think you have to abstract it sometimes, right? Because at the end of the day, what they're looking for is have you ever helped someone that didn't understand what they were? I think abstract, take out it's probably the minor detail of the phone part that threw you off, right?
Right.
And so you have to like think about how you help someone and then maybe tweak it to it being on the phone. Like, it's just like, I'm sorry, sometimes I understand if I ask you a technical question, you're like, I don't really understand it, but I'll get back to you. But I think with these behavioral, they're asking you like, you understand the why. So, adjust it accordingly. And if you can think on your feet and, and just say, and then add in the little spices of detail over the phone where you're like, yeah, because it wasn't there visually, I had to make sure checkpoints every often to be like, hey, in the left corner, you'll see it. And then you wait for a confirmation. And then I was able to successfully help them and do everything. So yeah, a lot of it behavioral is, unfortunately, unless it's so obscure where you're just like, I haven't done it, it's probably best to just abstract it and answer it too.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I literally, she was asking the question. I was like, what on earth am I about to say to this? And
yeah.
So Andrew, to this point, have you worked with your teammates and have you resolved and conveyed some messages over the phone to him?
Yeah, I guess I have. Yeah, I guess I could have said something. I didn't, I had the nerves and whatnot. So
This, to Kirby points, you could utilize this information and use your.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Good question. Definitely don't want you to be stumped on a behavioral question.
Any other questions? Raise your hands, please, or put it in the chat. There's a question from Samuel in the chat. How do you feel about, that's again, towards the, let's Samuel touch, 1 second. Samuel, we're gonna come back to these questions. I just wanna make sure that any other questions regarding the interviews or how to find a job in the cloud solutions.
I just have a quick question for Kirby. How did you get started into cloud? If you mind asking, because I saw that you were like, you just got from computer science and then you just found cloud along the way, or how was it?
Yeah, so I started taking some certifications just because I knew it was fast growing. And one thing about a job that I've seen and working in different departments is that when the market is exploding, there's something to be said about being a first market mover. And I've seen it before where some people may not have been qualified for certain jobs, or they were really young getting like over 6-figure jobs. And it's probably because some of them may have been, they weren't any smarter, but there was just the right time at the right place. And so I think for me, I took some certifications, really enjoyed it, and knew that it was a growing industry. And so I just went all the way in with it. It's something I could see. And like I said, I've seen people get some ridiculous job numbers within a year too, because I think the market is just starving for cloud engineers. So
follow up, how long did it take, like the process, like when you picked the cloud to, I guess?
Yeah, so I think I'm a little bit older, so I'm older than most of you, and probably a lot older than most of you. So I will say that like when I first started studying for the solution architect and the cloud practitioner, there was like 8 months in between. Like I had no excuse, I wasn't doing anything. Right. But as soon as I got my solution architect and I was like, I'm studying for the rest of it, and I put it aside 2 hours a day, every single day, you can get your solution architect within a month. That's a high level one. It just depends, right? I'm studying on the weekend for some of these things, and it's because I know at the end I'll get a payout. Some of you might be in a different place, different priorities, or just have more time, right? So but it all depends on you and how you're able to juggle and fit it in. I will say like school is great and all, but what you really want to be concentrating on is Capstone experience, real world experience, as well as certs. Everyone's going to have a degree when they come out of it. Don't even list those classes on your resume because everyone else will. But if you don't have an internship before or any type of professional work experience, this Capstone is where you're going to be pulling in for your interviews. Tell me about time you work with your team, like all from the Capstone experience. And then your certs are going to be great because how many of other people have certs graduating from Georgia State University? Not a lot. Some people might get the practitioner or the Azure fundamental, but there's not going to be a lot of people who have the solution architect. So if you get a solution architect, if you get, and you really can lean in on your Capstone experience, you're going to have good material for your interview, but also you're going to be really rocking out when you set yourself apart in your resume. Yeah.
Okay, last questions, because I know we have gone over time quite a bit. So anybody else has a question for Kirby?
Yeah, I appreciate all the information. Yeah, found it very informative. Yeah, I'll go ahead and apply it to when I go to apply this, or continue to apply. Real quick, for anyone also wondering about that signature email program I use, is called Signature Hound. Yeah, I found the name of it, so it's really great.
Ross, if you don't mind to post that information on our SCCOE LinkedIn page so that can help everybody else, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. I've also put my LinkedIn in here. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out. And if you are interested in cloud or whatnot, just say you are interested, and when jobs post, I'll keep you
and
in mind.
Send Kirby a nice message, short and cohesive.
The only thing is, if you do meet with me, I'll set a time apart for anyone that wants to meet. We can do like a meet and greet on Teams. My biggest pet peeve and stickler is just people just not doing, like, I guess, being lazy. So if you do meet with me and we look at your resume and I make changes, or we're doing interviewing stuff, like, don't use I'm too busy with school, and like, if we're set, change your resume and we're going to meet next week, like, have it changed. So other than that, like, if you think you can handle that, then feel free to reach out and connect or ask for help. I'll leave it up to y'all to see how much help you would like and what type of help. So yeah,
basically you guys need to put 200% and Kirby will put 100%. So Kirby, we have one more question in the chat, and that will be last questions for you, and then we're going to conclude the meeting. How do you feel about the Okta incident and its consolidation cloud computing a bigger security risk? And that's it.
Yeah, great question, Samuel. I don't know too much about the Okta incident, so I can't really speak to it other than cloud best practices is what we follow, and there's going to always be a demand for cybersecurity and cloud enterprise, and I think it's job security. So yeah, if you're interested, like, I think keep doing what you're doing in that field. May not be the answer you're looking for. That's the honest answer I have. So thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate those that kind of stuck out and really made it interactive. You know, looking to the few of you and as well as the people on the chat. You know, I thank you for replying. So. But thanks,
Kirby,
Christina,
thank you so
me.
much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah.
Look forward for all the feedback from other students. We have another about 20 students that need to go and rewatch this presentation. They need to provide, you know, that drill. They do need to provide their feedback under this video. So you're going to see lots of communications going on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you. Thanks, Christina. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Kirby. And students, please stay on the call.
Thank you.